Okay. No recording. So I'm just gonna kick it right off. Well, happy 420, everybody. I appreciate everyone being here and joining us today. I am Alexander Perez with Chicago NORML. I got my host here as well. David, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dave, Chicago NORML, high-tech consultant. I'm here to talk a little bit about social equity with some like-minded people. So
there you go. And today's session is titled Cannabis and Color. We're really here to talk about, just have like a candid conversation about the state of cannabis from the past, where it's currently at, and what we think the future should hold for individuals of color within the cannabis spaces. And today we're pretty fortunate. We got two incredible guests. We can go ahead and start with Richard Wallace, the one and only.
Hey, everybody. Richard Wallace with Equity and Transformation in Chicago. Also like to lift up the Black Roots Alliance and Movement for Black Lives. And All of Us Are None. Yeah, those bodies.
And next we have
Andrew Farrior. I'm a managing partner at Digital Venture Partners. We're a venture portfolio company, so we basically create and grow and raise capital for minority-founded brands that we partner with.
All right, and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have both of you here with us today. I'm really excited about this conversation and just to have these seasoned individuals, elaborate on what social equity is and what it is to kind of operate within this space. And in this time, I mean, with COVID-19 going, wreaking havoc across the globe, we all know the cannabis industry has not been spared. We're dealing with stuff in this industry as well. Let's just jump right into it. So I think that for a lot of people, they really don't know what social equity is. And I know cannabis has been legal now for, a couple months in the state of Illinois. And even before then, the lead up, the state government unveiled their social equity program. But I still think there's a lot of misinformation, and there's just a lot of people that just don't know what social equity is, why it exists, and what benefits, there are with it. So we can start with whoever, but I want to hear from you too. What is social equity and why is it important? Why do people need to know what it is and why it exists?
I'll start. I'll say, and I'm pretty sure everyone can agree with me, social equity, what it is and what it is supposed to be are two different things in cannabis right now. In reality, I think it's just a check mark, right, on a box that companies have to just check off because it's an idea that everybody agrees with, right, that it should be equal representation, it should be equal opportunity to succeed or fail on your own merits and talents, right, not based off of anything else. But in reality, there's not really a lot of tools that actually empower us to be equal or have equity within cannabis. So it's two separate conversations. I think it's important for people who look like us to have representation, have access to capital, to resources, to information. But it's a fight to get to that point. It's a fight to get an equal opportunity to involve yourself in this industry. So that's what social equity is to me. It's right now it's just a lot of conversation amongst people. You have to say it. It's a PR thing, but in reality, I don't think it's very equitable within cannabis right now.
Yeah, I agree. I can give a little bit of backdrop on how we landed on equity, right? We centered our demand. So I think right when we heard about recreational cannabis being legalized in the state of Illinois, I got a phone call from a sister named Caitlin Johnson, who at the time was working at Action Now. We both were organizers. And she knew that I was organizing folks in the informal economy, like folks in the street economy. And if you think about the street economy, and in that world, cannabis was one of the lighter markets that exist, right? Cannabis sales. Like you ain't gotta, like if you lose some weed, people ain't gonna bust your whole head in. You know what I'm saying? Like you just lost some weed, right? You know what I mean? So it's easy to get in, easy to get out, right? So what I immediately started thinking about is like, okay, they're about to legalize this. What is going to be the impact on our folks in our communities if we're not included in the process? Immediately, I started looking at the medical industry, and what I saw was that there was no Black ownership in the medical industry, right? And a lot of times, like I say when I talk, that like you're not going to see the racism the way it was before. This is why equity becomes a tool, right? Like back in the day, they used to just be blatant with racism. It would be whites only restaurants, whites only fountains, yada, yada, yada. Now it's not as explicit, right? there's a reason why our people don't end up in Wicker Park and in these other, you know, these affluent communities, because we can't afford to. So it's like, so what they do is they price us out. They use monetary language in order to keep us out of the market, right? They keep, and that's all the markets. That's housing, that's education, that's all of the markets. The way that they box us out of the markets are by using financial language, right? And so what we found in the Compassionate Care Act is that there were things as simple as you need $400,000 in liquid capital, right? Just to step up on the just to step up to the table. So you pair that with a city that has one of the highest racial wealth gaps in the nation, has one of the highest rates of Black unemployment in the nation, and you get results like all white ownership, right? It's just, I mean, it's common sense. You place the bar higher than the per capita income of a particular population, and you end up keeping that population out without saying this is a whites only event, right? A whites only category of market, right? So we saw that, and immediately I think we had to begin to frame our campaign around reparations for the war on drugs, right? Because essentially what you're saying is that an individual that is inside of the prison right now for having a brilliant business model, right? And what you're saying is that an individual, I think this is the best point, an individual who is somebody that is poor, financially poor, doesn't have access to a job, food, water, shelter, for them to make a decision to sell weed in order to come up out of poverty, that's criminal. But if you're a millionaire who chooses to sell cannabis just to make more money, then it's not. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? A poor person from the community sells weed, a nickel bag of weed, whatever, goes to prison for life, right? Under 3 strikes, that could lead to something like life, right? Meanwhile, we have a cannabis industry where millionaires, right, enter it only to make more millions, right? They're not making it to put food on the table. They're not making it so that the babies got diapers, et cetera, et cetera. They're making more money essentially to make more money. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and that's not criminal, but on the other end, our folks are criminal when we enter the market. So that's like, for me, the language of equity is a soft way of explaining why there's a need for reparations for our people, because the way that we got where we are economically was also a strategic process, right? I mean, if you think about post-slavery, I don't want to go all the way back. If you think about post-slavery, our folks had all of the skills, right? We were the maids, we were the seamstress, we were the engineers, we were the mechanic, we were everything. So we were the most I mean, we should have made all of the money coming out of slavery, right? All of the trades, we had them. But there's been a long history of divestment from our people, in means of education, housing, et cetera. And so equity is like saying essentially equity means fairness, right? And how do you get to fairness? And what do you need to incorporate in order to get to fairness? And I think that one of the ways that we can get there is by, you know, fulfilling that that commitment to reparations for the war on drugs.
At this point, you know, our community needs equity in this industry. Like, we need a portion of this pie. And I just want our people not to necessarily just be thinking about, man, I'm trying to sell weed. It's legal. Sell some weed. Like, it's way bigger than that. You don't have to sell bags of weed or pre-roll blunts or even have a dispensary to make money off of this economy. And I really want our people to really understand that, and not just Black people, brown people, but disenfranchised people who really benefit from utilizing their skills, you know what I'm saying, in this industry that they love and are so passionate about.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. I think at this point, a lot of people understand, especially if you've been in the background of the industry, or somebody like Richard, who's been on the forefront of the industry and seeing it develop. One of the biggest issues clearly is access to capital. And I mean, I think we all understand that this is only going to get harder given the current state of the world. You know, right now, a lot of capital wells that did exist for people of color are drying up even faster. So, Andrew, you know, from an investment perspective, you know, why is minority investment, why is minority capital so important to folks of color in the space?
I think capital in any industry is important, right? It fuels the industry, and it's the reward for being successful in the industry for the most part, right? You create capital. You enter a market with the intent of generating capital to take it off of the market, i.e. into your bank account, into your savings account, right? So I think the issue with us, we don't have access to these companies. We don't have conversations with these people. They aren't aware of us, or they don't interact with us. So they look at us as a higher risk. They don't really understand our culture, right? Like, I think Richard said it earlier, the original weed dealers, the original rappers who talked about it, they brought it to the point to where it was acceptable and even celebrated socially, right? Culturally, something that we can interact around. So we understand that, but capital companies kind of look at it as, there are no successful Black faces within cannabis, so they don't really have anything to liken us to. So I think that's an impediment to us, which is unfair, obviously, but that's the reality. But to answer your question, like you said, for most states, you have to have, a 10-year lease on your dispensary or retail location, or you have to own it outright before you apply. Or like in Georgia, we're preparing to apply for a medical license. You have to have like a $50,000 deposit on where you want to cultivate at. So you can't even start the application process without capital, right? So you can't even really interact within this space without money. So, I mean, it's a non-starter. If you don't have money, or you don't have a pathway to generating money, you can't even begin in this industry. So it's more important here than I feel like anywhere.
These mom and pops, these smaller dispensaries, these smaller cannabis-related businesses, even though they might be minority owned, they still have a certain percentage of dependency upon loans or investors that are white. And that's a reality for a lot of these organizations. Do you think that investment capital from Black and brown individuals is needed now more than ever in those spaces to kind of reclaim whatever independence was there within the industry? Because I feel like there can be an argument made that folks in the informal economy migrated to the formal economy for that level of independence. However, they're not finding it as a result of a lack of capital.
Right. So my answer to that would be, it doesn't really matter where you get your capital from. Us being a minority founded company, of course, we would love to have $1 billion to give out to Black people. But the thing that I tell people to look for is affordable capital. So, right. So when you raise money, you have to really pay attention to what type of debt and what that debt could convert into. Right. So you could lose your company if you take a bad investment. Some of these companies lend in a predatory fashion. We've all seen it. We grew up in the hood. We grew up around payday loans, title loans. We've seen it. You know what I'm saying? So it, in a lot of ways, is sneaking into cannabis and in just a way that looks a lot more commercialized. But you have to really seek out affordable capital. Take a loan that you can afford to pay back. You know what I'm saying? Or that doesn't put you in a position where you can't raise money again because you've given away so much of your company in your seed round, to where if you raise again, you're now a minority owner in something that you spent 5, 10, 15 years generating. So I just tell people to look for affordable capital and put yourself in a position to get there. Not all money's not good money. We know that. We all got somebody who we know, like, I'm not asking him for money. I'm not asking her for money because it's not going to be worth it. She's going to hold it over my head. He going to do this. He going to do that. It's the same way in business.
Have you seen a lot of that in the industry? Like, since you've been here, like what you've seen, have you seen, because I think what people call is colonizing and, people who try to like act like they coming to help.
It's basically loan sharking, honestly. They like Richard said, with redlining and how they price us out of homes and education in certain school districts. They do the same thing with investing, right? And a lot of these companies, when they either want to take your company from you, or they raise money for themselves and pay themselves high salaries, and then they expect their company to go under. So let's say if I have a fund, right, I may pay myself a lot of money and I know the company's gonna fold in 3 or 4 or 5 years, but I'm giving myself $1 million bonus every year. I'm giving myself a $600,000 salary every year. So I know this company's gonna fail. You might be tied to a capital company that loses its respect within the industry. So they might be like, oh, David and Rich took money from ABC Capital and those guys was terrible. So they ruined your reputation, but they made out with millions. So I've seen and heard it all. It's something that you got to be very mindful of. It's not, raising money is not a win. Raising affordable money is a win.
with COVID-19 being such a big issue right now and in the foreseeable future, especially when it pertains to social equity, and if you gentlemen want to chime in, like, what do you think is needed now more than ever for these Black and brown organizations that are smaller, that are going to come online, right, in the foreseeable future in Illinois? What do you think is needed for them to succeed and thrive? You know, because I think that one of the biggest issues is obviously they can't compete with the GTIs, they can't compete with the Crescos, you know, even in this market right now, you know. So given their social equity status, right, the state has given them incentives to help them. Do you think those things need to be expanded? What do you think is going to be needed in a COVID-19 world?
I think it's important that we share each other's platforms. Number one, it's like, you know, we're all online. Everybody's doing the same thing. If you got people who you do business with online, let people know you're doing business with these people. Help their business grow the way you want them to help your business grow.
I think through this COVID stuff, it's been a lot of relaxation on people's business models. Like in certain states, they're allowing, you know, they're more lax on deliveries, on curbside pickups, stuff like that. So it's given a lot of companies the ability to actually operate like a regular business, like a Uber Eats, like a Grubhub, to actually be able to deliver and not be at risk of getting a strike on their retail license or getting it revoked or getting audited, stuff like that. It's really hard. It's like if we want a retail license right now, but we don't have a delivery parameter in it, so we can't even deliver weed. Think about how much money we leaving on the table because the state told us that we can't deliver. Even though we paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and did everything right and won a license and did all of that, we still can't deliver. So now in COVID with the social distancing, they're allowing a lot of these minority companies to actually do stuff like delivery, and it's saving them right now. So I would say just the stuff that they're relaxing and bringing in to where we can adapt to how everything is, keep it that way. Don't make these Black people go back through the application process to add delivery to their license, and just small stuff like that.
Go ahead, please.
Like, I think there's some formation of like a Black Cannabis Association paired with some form of a lobby for that association that's going to get down there in Springfield, because a lot of the way that the power becomes dismantled and or rebuilt is through policy. And so it's really hard to run a retail shop and stay current on all of the legalese that is taking place around the cannabis. And it's really hard. You know what I mean? Like they I think it was right during the holiday, they went and they introduced like a 600-page amendment to Senate Bill 7, right? Or to HB 1483. 38, yeah. So we're getting ready to wrap gifts, and these mogs went and introduced a whole bill, right? And who had the time to read 600 pages, right? And I think that we need standalone institutions that can monitor cannabis, because like I can go down to Springfield right now and I'll hear about a bill that's being passed around alcohol, right? Alcohol has been legal, right? But it changes, and it's going to consistently change. I think that having an institution that's looking out for the best interests of social equity applicants, right? And then also some form of a business association where all of us that are coming together, how do we begin to pool our resources in ways? And I think the reason why that becomes pertinent is because the one thing that COVID amplified for me is the fact that we need our own capital, right? We need our own institutions. Like, I don't think they're doing large scale jail releases, et cetera, et cetera. And where are folks gonna go, right? I don't know a black person that won't hire a person with a record, right? So we need to be in positions where we can hire our folks, absorb our folks, and train our folks. And I don't know if we've done that yet, right? I think it's something that we have to do. I think the cannabis can be part of it, right? I think the cannabis, you got a dispensary on the block next to the dispensary, you got a restaurant next to that, you got a grocery store. Like, how do we begin doing that future visioning with the capital that we can produce via cannabis in order to really repair our communities? Because if shit hits the fan and the state pulls out the safety net, what do we have, right? That can really sustain and hold our people. And I think that's one of the questions that COVID has brought up for me. And I think that via like having like a comprehensive ecosystem or whatever you want to call for like cannabis for our folks, it really can change that. You know what I'm saying? I really would love to be our communities to be more independent. You know, like who owns the houses? Like, can the dispensary buy up a few properties and start putting people in housing? You know, like, can we start thinking about things collectively? And I think groups like Anton from Grow Greater Inglewood is doing a lot of that work. And there's some folks that are visionaries, but there hasn't been that formation yet. And I would love to see that happen.
Things like this where we could bring people together. I feel like this is the initial step to doing that, making it public. Like, yo, this is what we doing. Y'all need to slide. If you want to learn, come on, we'll teach you. You know what I'm saying? If you want to teach, then come on. People want to learn. Like and that's what I'm trying to do with Link Up. It's a thing, I talk to y'all about it. Probably everybody on here knows about Link Up, but we need to work together to pool these resources so that people who want to learn can learn. People who want to teach can have a place to share their knowledge, and then also monetize on different opportunities that they come across.
Yeah. To touch on what I agree with what both of y'all gentlemen said, but to touch on what Richard said, I actually had an idea that I had pitched to a capital company. It should be dividend payouts to the neighborhood. If you go into a Black neighborhood that's been decimated by cannabis criminalization, right? I feel like if it's a woman there whose sons, nephews, grandchildren, daughters got arrested for cannabis, she should get a dividend every quarter. However much money this dispensary made down the street because they were able to come into her neighborhood because you arrested so many people that the property value dropped. So you got property at a discount, right?
Talk about that.
And these people who you arrested actually introduced cannabis to the neighborhood and surrounding areas that want to come in and actually shop with you. Now, I feel like every quarter, it should be a payout to the neighborhood. If you were directly affected or had a family member affected, you should get a couple $100s a month, a couple $1,000s a quarter, because this business is now operating in your neighborhood. You shouldn't have to go into cannabis to benefit from it. Some people call it socialism, but I feel like it's repairing what you created, right? So I feel like stuff like that in the long term is what should have to happen. Because if you look at a state like Alaska, you're a citizen in the state of Alaska, you get a payout from all of the oil that they generate from the state, right? Just being a citizen, you get paid like a couple $1,000s a year because the state makes so much money off of oil, right? So why wouldn't our communities be able to benefit the same way off something that literally was built on our backs, right? So stuff like that, I feel like it is the real solution.
I think what COVID has done is showed that they can move money fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who would have thought? I thought, like, if we fought for reparations, it'd be a long process. They have to figure out how to get a check. I checked my account yesterday. Did y'all get that little stimulus? That little
Girl got it.
Taco.
And it was like, oh wait, y'all can do that quick. Y'all can make a decision, flip a switch, and put 2 racks in my pocket. Okay, so just saying, like, pairing it up to what you're saying, like the dividend thing, the state should also be involved in that, right? If we estimate the amount of money that the state is actually going to produce. And I feel like one of the programs that they created, which is the R3, the grant project, I mean, we can get the little small grants, et cetera, et cetera. Even with that, there's a lot of red tape to it, right? Like, they should, I mean, I agree with you so much. Like, and we need to chat after we get off of this, because I think that's a brilliant idea. How do we get not just the companies that are making over a certain amount, because we ain't got to tax them all. If your company's struggling, you know what I'm saying? That's cool. Those will probably be ours anyway. The ones that make money in our communities.
We want it once y'all get good, though. We want it later.
Right, we coming back. You hit that ththreshold, come on with that money. But how do we then try to pool those resources in the form of a dividend and give it back out to the community? I just want to say,
maybe we could have them just, instead of paying it like directly to individuals, it could be something that's paid like to the commerce, the Chamber of Commerce in that specific ward. That way the money can be allotted however need be in that area, you know what I'm saying? Because nobody knows what a specific community needs that was affected better than like the alderman, the person who's at work every day, you know what I'm saying? Or people, around that in that realm.
Well, even if it's a scholarship fund, if you say, every year we take $25,000 out, and if you lived in this zip code and one of your parents was incarcerated for cannabis and you have a certain GPA, you get a portion of this scholarship. It's ways that you can make sure that the direct neighborhood benefits from this new business that's across the street.
You got brilliant.
I'd be afraid to so if y'all know what TIFs are.
Yeah, TIF districts.
Okay, right?
So
anytime, so this TIF dollars essentially, like, you think about Cabrini Green, you had all of those folks that was paying, so they weren't paying full rent, right? But they were paying
like subsidized rent.
Subsidized, right. Mm-hmm. And so a percentage of that money went into a TIF fund. And then when they shut down Cabrini, essentially they're supposed to rebuild subsidized housing using those dollars, right? Now, my challenge, my thing, with David's comment, I don't want to give the money over to the state for the state to then define who deserves it.
Right. I feel what you're saying.
Oftentimes, it never ends up coming out to us the way we want it. So, like, even the resources for the R3 money, you got to be GATA certified, right? And GATA certification is a long process. And most of our folks, we just now signed up for an S corp. We just now signed up for a 501c3. So you need years in it.
Do that. That's our job, to help people through that process. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. Like, what I'm trying to do with Link, I want it to be like, oh, you want to do this? Oh, you know that you're going to need that GATA certification, my boy. We'll do it now, because you're going to be looking crazy when you're at the deadline trying to do it in 2 days, and it's a application.
Before we wrap up, I just kind of want to ask, you know, we clearly have defined what the history of cannabis looked in the past for our communities of color. We've talked about what it currently looks like for our communities of color. But you know, what do you guys think the future holds for our communities of color, and what would you like to see in that future? Anybody can start.
I can start.
Rich got to say,
Yeah, I'll start.
Take us to church, Rich.
Yeah, I just my mom was a minister, so you know I get that. Preacher's kid, so I got that. I'm gonna be short though. I think we just not accepting no. We can't accept no. We got to walk through no's like we've been walking through my entire life. And I would love for us to come together in ways that we can trust each other financially. There's a lot of distrust in our community. We got to erase that, right? Because we'll not trust. I won't trust Andrew, but then I'll go to this other dude, multi-millionaire, is going to exploit me in the long run, but he's smiling at me in my face. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't get played that way. If I'm gonna get played by anybody, I'd rather it be one of my own. We gotta have that mentality. So I think those are some of the things I would love to see. Us getting a real stake. I don't care if it's just one, but one large scale, vertically integrated, black owned that we can get behind, start investing in. We could begin buying into, sharing, buying stocks, make it. Because I think about I'm gonna say this. A lot of folks that ended up getting capital in the long run, they started off small. 10 people in a household, moving one family out at a time, right? And we got to think about the cannabis industry the same way. We start off together and we start shooting people off individually one at a time. You know what I mean? But we start by getting something that's vertically integrated, where we can begin to employ our people, build capital, and say like we all working at the same dispensary. Alex, you got to save 10% of your check every month, no matter what, we're going to put it away. David, same thing. You know what I'm saying? And then stagger and shoot people out. Boom, 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 to take on the next one and take on the next one. Right now, we're in the beginning stages of this, and I would love to see us, 30 years from now, coming back together, saying, like, what did we learn? You know what I'm saying? So that's my hope.
Andrew?
I would say, man, 2 things that I tell every black person who asks me for advice. Don't take anything personal in the industry and embrace a no, right? So what I mean by that is, you're going to get told no. People they're going to disregard you. They're going to say whatever they got to say to get you out of their face. Oh, yeah, I'll take a look at it. Email it over to me. Let's set up a call. Let's set up a meeting. We all been done like that, right? By somebody who we was excited about the prospect of getting introduced to them, having a conversation, and we never spoke to that person again in our life, right? Or we tried to see something through and it didn't quite go how we wanted it to go. That happens to everybody within cannabis every single day. So I say don't take it personal, because everybody's having to deal with it. Embrace failure. Figure out why you got told no. And because I always tell people, marching and picketing and stuff like that, that's cute. But at the end of the day, you can't pay rent with civil rights movements. You know what I'm saying? It has to transition into capital, into equity, into positions of power. So, that is necessary in that path, right? Being told no, taking setbacks, having to adapt, having to pivot, having to change your business model. So I tell everybody to be prepared for that. And the outcome of all of that is success.
I love it.
Because if I fail and I quit, somebody like Richard gonna look at what I did like, oh yeah, I remember when Andrew was doing this and he stopped. But if he'd have did this, he gonna pick up where I went. So you might as well be the person to see your own vision through anyway.
Yeah.
I love it. No, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
before we wrap it up again, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to shout out, give us some of your handles, you know, so what are some projects you guys are working on, anything you want to promote before we close out.
You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram at EatOrgChicago. Go to the website, www.eatchicago.org. Right now, we're doing this Life Kit intervention, and Andrew, we got to build. We just got to build. I like everything you're saying. But again, we tried to raise resources, real money, and put it into the hands of folks in the community. Also, you know, try to do away with the ghost of Tuskegee and get, you know, these are the facts about COVID. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is really what's happening. And we're doing that. So we got a GoFundMe up. And those resources, every dollar we raise is going directly to the people. And we try to get resources back into folks' hands. That's what we're doing currently along with the cannabis work.
And we will make sure that we have that information linked in the description of this. So I appreciate that, Rich. Thank you for shouting that out. Andrew?
So yeah, you can follow our company, Digital Venture TV, at Instagram. And then our first brand with our co-founder, Sunny Digital, he's a producer based out of Atlanta. His Rolling Grams of Wax brand. So that's our retail brand. We're already in a few dispensaries in California. We're looking to expand to go multi-state in Oregon, eventually Illinois. That's why me and Dave and his wife were talking about putting an event on out there. We'd love to have Rich partner with us for that. So, you know, moving forward, we just every day trying to make a little bit of progress, put one brick at a time. Before you know it, you got a wall. After that, you got a house. So
there you go. David, where can we follow you, my brother? Where we at?
Y'all can check me out. You can find me @linkupchicago_ on Instagram, or hightech_Chicago. Yeah, I'm just really trying to help people get together. I really would appreciate anybody who I've been working with. Andrew, I look forward to working with Richard. I always work with my boy Alex, Chicago NORML, Hightech. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to put this thing together. So, you know, I'm proud of it. I'm happy that everybody's here. I'm happy we got our word out, and I want to do the same thing for more people. I want to help everybody get their voice out here. It's COVID-19, people locked in the crib. We need to capitalize on these people glued to their screens. I want to help people do that. I want to help people realize that they are a resource. They got resources inside themselves. You need to tap into them, appreciate yourself, and get this money. And I want to help you do it. So
you got the clap.
Hey, get to the bag. Get to the bag.
Get to the bag. That's it. I am Alexander Perez. You can follow me on Instagram. That's my main social media of choice @_Sir Alexander, extra underscore at the end of that. And before, you know, we officially wrap, I just want to take a second to highlight that, you know, where else can you get four really dope, brilliant Black and brown minds together to talk about some of these really intricate situations and events that are happening in Black and brown spaces. You know, cannabis has really been, you know, that catalyst for that. And so I really want to highlight that. I really want to take a second to appreciate that and appreciate y'all for coming on and having this dialogue, this conversation. So thank you. Be safe out there. It's kind of crazy out right now, but I really want you guys to enjoy your 420 safely and social distance. You know, be safe out there, guys. Okay?
All right,
Take care. Sign out.
Bye.